Hi, I'm Denae Ford Robinson. I'm a senior researcher at Microsoft Research in Redmond, and I lead the Open Source for Social Good project. The goal of the project is to be able to understand how contributors identify opportunities, how can we pair them with more opportunities, and how do we dismantle the challenges that they're facing. Ultimately, we want to be able to optimize their societal impacts or the goals that align best with their interests. Depending on your background, when you first hear about open source software, your mind will likely go directly to developers building tools for other developers. Although contributing to open source projects like TensorFlow and React are very valuable to the community, there are other galvanizing projects with broader impacts that inspire people to contribute to open source. There are projects like Little Window, which supports victims of intimate partner violence and provide resources to leave abusive relationships. Think about it as a chatbot that directs women to the information they are looking for as quickly as possible. The purpose is to dramatically reduce the time it takes to search for information because this could save lives. You can find out about this project, which is in active development on GitHub right now. Another project is Restroom Refuge, which identifies safe restrooms for trans and gender nonconforming individuals. You could think of this as a web app developed to index and map safe restroom locations. Users are able to search for a restroom by proximity to them, a given location, and new restroom listings, as well as comment and rate existing listings. You can look into the website, use the app on your phone, and most importantly, you can go on GitHub right now to contribute to this type of project. These are only a couple of social good projects that we identified. Although they may seem fewer in quantity, they are for sure powerful in influence. While all these projects seem to present non-traditional software tenets, the common property they share is a goal to support a greater social good. Although the term social good has been introduced in other fields like sociology and artificial intelligence, it is still a new concept for the open source software community. The 4 research questions we investigated for the study are: 1, how do contributors define open source for social good? 2, what motivations do contributors have to contribute to open source for social good? 3, what factors do contributors consider to select an open source for social good project? And 4, what are the current challenges to working in open source for social good? To answer our questions, we took a mixed methods approach of both qualitative and quantitative analyses to understand open source for social good projects from the contributor's perspective, which is a perspective that has not been captured as much to date. You can consider these contributors to be the code and non-code change makers on the ground, ensuring that these projects are successful. Through the study, we identified 437 open source for social good projects from third-party sites, which we make publicly available. We use insights from these social good projects, 21 social good contributor interviews, and 517 analyzed survey responses from around the world to answer our research questions. For our first research question, which is where we're trying to define what open source for social good means, we found that the study participants defined these projects based on the groups of people it will benefit, or the groups of people the project will benefit. So the 3 main properties that help formulate the definition that we're kind of identifying here is we're focused on whether the project aims at solving societal issue or provides some type of social benefit. 89% of our respondents identified this was a very important factor for these types of projects. 77% of our respondents were interested in how the project targets peoples or communities that need help. And around 35% of our respondents were interested in whether or not the project was focused on profit. For our next research question, we wanted to understand the motivations. So to investigate if contributors were actually motivated differently across open source and open source for social good, we asked them if there was a difference between these types of projects. And we wanted to compare the people who thought there was a difference to those who thought there wasn't. So we found that compared to open source versus social good projects, contributors found it significantly less important to them that their contribution benefits themselves by learning or improving skills, or building their portfolio and helping their own work projects. So on the contrary, open source for social good contributors were significantly more motivated to solve a societal issue, or essentially help someone else. For our other research question 3, we wanted to again get a better idea of what project selection criteria they may have been using. So for this question, we separated responses again based on open source versus open source for social good. And we found that the social good contributors leaned more towards caring less about the project popularity, such as the number of following stars, and more about who the owners of the project are. Who are the rule makers in this project? Who's going to be the one to execute? Likewise, we found that open source for social good contributors prioritized projects that met a global need, had long-term benefits, and benefited their personal connection. From our analysis of challenges, which is our fourth research question, we found that the lack of resources available to find projects was quite a challenge, and it made it hard for people to figure out which projects to contribute to. Likewise, a restricted amount of funding, different types of expertise, blending all into one project, kind of presented itself a whole new set of collaboration challenges, especially across global regions. So though facing with similar challenges as open source projects do, it can be more of a challenge for open source for social good contributors to find a project contributed to based on the impact of the project. So now that I've gone over what we found, it's important to talk about the design solutions and innovative approaches to support open source for social good contributors. One challenge, or really opportunity, that comes with reflecting on the fact that contributors have a hard time identifying projects is the opportunity to identify societal impact. So solutions that address this challenge could be thinking about having a social good project highlight on their main page or their homepage when they were to advertise opportunities, or even adding a social impact contributor badge to highlight the next level or the types of societal impact that this project could have. Being transparent and clear about where and how this project can impact society can really help gravitate or bring in new contributors. Alternatively, there are also opportunities in understanding what some of the trust and safety challenge turned opportunities could be here. So they're engaging in open source for social good projects. They also have a high risk of contributor safety that is a concern, and you want to make sure your contributors feel safe and supported when they're contributing to this project, especially if others may not feel like it's a project that's worth the resources. So in summary, we believe our results shed light on the global impacts of open source software can have and will lead to future research and support for open source for social good, including but not limited to providing help and steering guidance for adopting or adapting more social good projects to open source. An excerpt from this work was actually featured in the 2020 GitHub Octoverse Community Report, and in our future work, we plan to actualize our findings and devise interventions to support contributors identifying projects, looking for projects, and also project owners identifying contributors that they need to be successful. Now that we have a broader understanding of how people engage with open source for social good projects, we're taking this one step further. Through a series of additional research projects and experiments, I'm excited to announce that we're exploring how to turn the challenges of identifying projects into a design opportunity. We're specifically looking at opportunities to help people interested in contributing to find that greater good impact opportunity they're looking for. To learn more about our research project, feel free to visit our research page on open source software for social good. You can also explore the GitHub Social Impact website, as well as the latest GitHub Octoverse report. We can't wait to see how you all contribute to these projects. Looking forward to see how you all plan to impact the world. Cheers.
We have to actually rethink the entire AI stack.
What is reinforcement learning? Let's look at an interactive demo.
All our code is now open source.